Matt Kibee is here, President and CEO of FreedomWorks. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Hey, Glenn. How's it going?
Very good. First of all, I want to ask you a question. I understand that Dick Armey was making phone calls saying, "Hi, I'm Dick Armey, founder of FreedomWorks," which is extraordinarily misleading, seeing that Dick Armey was one of the guys who led the attempted coup at FreedomWorks to try to turn it into a Karl Rove organization. And quite honestly, because of that, tied all of you guys up to stop you from finding really good candidates and getting behind them really early. Is that true about Dick? Was he making? Have you heard that?
Yeah. Well, we've been getting calls from all of our activists because he was doing robocalls for John Cornyn leading up to this vote yesterday, confusing a lot of voters because clearly the intention was to suggest that FreedomWorks was behind John Cornyn, and I thought it's sort of a sad tactic and sort of a sad end to a story. But this is what incumbents do, and it's a little bit like a hockey stick. Look at how John Cornyn behaved up until the day that he didn't really seat a serious primary challenger. He was Mr. Conservative, and right after that, he decided that he would make an example out of Ted Cruz and start voting for a clean debt ceiling and return to form. So we have to realize that these guys pretend to be us when they need to win, and then the day after they're safe again, they start acting like them again.
Right. So we just have to know that going in, and that's why I'm not a fan of Cornyn, and I pray for him. I pray for his soul, that maybe he can find it when he gets back to Washington, but I don't know how to hold out a lot of hope. Tell me about Mitch McConnell. Do you have an update on what's happening? Because Karl Rove is deeply involved in Kentucky right now and running almost a covert op. You don't know that it's Karl Rove.
Yes, so the Rove team is very invested in protecting Mitch McConnell, and you think about the entire D.C. establishment, whether it be the political consultants who make so much money or the lobbyists that trade on their relationships with leadership, they're all in for Mitch McConnell. That's not helping him that much in the state of Kentucky. I think the activists, the Tea Party groups, the Liberty groups, and people in general in Kentucky are desperate for somebody else. Mitch McConnell is actually statistically losing to a virtual no-name Democrat in a state where he's already spent $10 million. Wow. And this is a state where Mitt Romney won Kentucky by 21 points.
Matt, when is the primary? How much time does MattKibee.com have?
April 5th? Is it April 5th?
No, that's. I think it's May 22nd, I believe.
May 22nd. Oh,
it's May.
So there is some time for MattBevin.com to still.
I don't think his name is .com.
Yeah, I think it's MattBevin.com.
It is. Is that what it is?
I think that's his full name. Yeah.
So how are you seeing that shape up? I mean, what are you starting to see in the polls on anything with Mitch McConnell? Is this Karl Rove stuff working?
I think it's actually backfiring. And the polls that I've seen, and there's partisan polls showing that Mitch McConnell's winning, and then there's other polls by the Democrats that tell their story. But the trend is that Matt Bevin is steadily gaining on Mitch McConnell, and he's starting from zero. If you look at the trends, say Rand Paul in Kentucky or Ted Cruz in Texas, it's quite similar. And that's in no means says that we're done, but it means that we're in the game. And I think a lot of the grassroots organizations and groups that support constitutional candidates are going to have to step up Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The one thing that Matt Bevin isn't doing yet is he's not raising a ton of money. I think he's raised about $1 million so far, and that's not enough.
Okay, so here is the deal. I was just going to say, full disclosure, FreedomWorks is a sponsor of this program. If you listen to this program, you know that. Also, full disclosure, Matt Kibee is a friend and a guy who I have watched for a long time and looked for any trace of him being a sellout or a big establishment guy. In fact, I have found quite the opposite, much to my great glee and pleasure. And you are doing a money bomb right now. You need to raise, what is it, $200,000 in the next 7 days?
Yes.
And that goes to put, for instance, in Kentucky, 80,000 people, volunteers, in the street of Kentucky to make sure that Matt Bevin wins this thing.
We got to win this one. We have to make sure that somebody, some rhino incumbent that has failed to stand up to their principles of protecting the Constitution and standing up to President Obama on spending and the debt, somebody has to pay that price. And we're not going to win all these races, but I think Kentucky is ground zero.
We should also note, Matt, that you're not just working on getting some of these mediocre to bad Republicans out of there and replace them with better candidates. You're also looking at taking over some of these seats that are currently held by Democrats. North Carolina's a key one.
I was just going to ask about Greg Brannon.
Greg Brannon, he was great when he was on with us.
We loved him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah, he did have, they were trying to throw around this trial thing that he had in one of his business dealings. What do you know about this, and is it going to hurt him?
Well, I've actually read the proceedings and tried to understand what's going on there. It's a business deal that went wrong, and he got into a bitter dispute with some former partners, and instead of settling, he thought it was important to go to court, and he lost that decision. And that has been a distraction for him. But looking at what's going on in that race right now, it's wide open. Tom Tillis, who's the Karl Rove blessed establishment choice, is not doing that well. He is.
How is Greg doing?
I think he's doing fine. There's not a lot of data. I think the court case was a distraction, but I don't think that it's decisive in this. And what he's got to do.
That's a real shit. He was just as impressive to me as Matt Bevin was. I mean, he's a great candidate.
I think Greg Brannon. We've only talked to him once. I think he is the most impressive one-time candidate on the air we've ever had.
He blew us away.
Yeah, he absolutely blew me away. I think he was
really good.
Remarkable. Chris McDaniel in Mississippi.
Chris McDaniel, there is no new polling there, but I think that's because the Cochran campaign doesn't want to release what they're finding. Tad Cochran is so desperate right now, he actually let Tony Podesta host a fundraiser for him the other day here in Washington, D.C. And Tony Podesta, of course, is the brother of John Podesta, the crony capitalist brothers of the vast left-wing conspiracy. That's who Tad Cochran represents. And I think Chris McDaniel is going to make a lot of hay of that. And that's another one, I think. If you're looking at the biggest opportunities, Mississippi's one of them for freedom fighters.
Shane Osborne in Nebraska.
It's interesting. I have to admit that Mike Lee endorsed Ben Sasse yesterday.
I know. I was surprised to see that.
Well, what's interesting about it is I think we're having a serious family disagreement about who of these two candidates is better. But one of them is going to win. So you're either going to be stuck with Mike Lee's favorite candidate or FreedomWorks' favorite candidate. And I call that a win-win.
Well, I would. Like let's get Ben Sasse on. Have we had him on yet?
No.
Let's put him. Let's put him on because I would like to hear. I mean, if that's really the choice, if it's either Osborne, who we've had on and it's pretty good, or Sasse, who I hear good things about, but we haven't had on. I don't really. I'm really quite cool with that.
Yeah.
CPAC.
I mean, Mike's wrong and I'm right. So let's be clear about that.
Yeah, right. CPAC is this weekend, and they asked me to give the keynote, and I can't because my wife is throwing a birthday party for me on our first day of vacation, and I she would kill me if I would have said yes, but I would have loved to have another opportunity to address CPAC. What is the word going to be about Texas and Karl Rove and everything, do you suppose, this weekend at CPAC?
You know, I think that ongoing clash between the grassroots activists and the establishment is going to be happening in real time at CPAC. They're still, from my perspective, they still represent that lobbyist consultant class that is so corrupted, the GOP. But their constituents, the activists that show up, they're the future of the GOP. So a lot of these guys are going to pretend to be like us this weekend, and I guess that's a form of winning, but we still got some work to do there. I
will tell you, Matt, that 2 years ago we kind of started this thing with FreedomWorks in the summer, where it was in Dallas, and then last year it was in Salt Lake City, and hopefully this year we'll have something to announce. But the idea that FreedomWorks is not in Washington, D.C. I think anytime these organizations root themselves in Washington, D.C., you go bad. You just go bad. You become this self-important, everybody comes to me instead of us going out and listening to the people to where they live. You just don't, it's not the same.
It's a mutual support group of insiders, and I've become sort of radicalized on this in my old age that we gotta tear that thing up by the roots, because good people become corrupted because they become dependent on who's in leadership, and they need to be dependent on the judgment of the people that elect them.
So, Matt, one last thought. We're coming up to the 5-year anniversary of the 9/12 Project, and the 9/12 Project was never really political. It was about principles and values, and it was coinciding with the Tea Party, and they stood side by side. And after a while, people, even the Tea Party, started to tear itself apart a bit, and then it grew up and has become a real political force. 5 years ago, on September 12th, 9/12, that march happened in Washington. Do you think we'd be looking at Matt Bevin? Do you think we'd be looking at any of the wins, the Mike Lees, or any of these guys, had it not been for a grassroots movement of that march that happened on 9/12?
No, I think the thought of a Senator Lee or a Senator Cruz or a Senator Rand Paul was unthinkable that day. And you're standing up on stage and saying, "What's happening here? I don't even understand where all of these people came from." But
right.
Michael Barone actually wrote a really smart piece a couple days ago talking about how we've fundamentally changed the conversation in Washington, how we're reshaping the Republican Party, and compared us to the conservative version of the left-wing peace movement in the 1960s.
Which is exactly what we said when we were there.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we said.
So we're changing everything. I do think that activists need to understand that the founders told us this is a lifetime commitment, and you don't get to fix Washington overnight as much as we desperately need to. We got to play the long game, because if we go away, they go back to business as usual.
Send me that article. I'd love to read that. Matt, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Matt Kibee from FreedomWorks. And what is it? FreedomWorksForMe.com is where that money bomb is where they're trying to raise that money now to get those people out on the streets. So if you can donate, please do, because we saw something really, really good happen in Texas, and in the states where we really do have some great candidates running against people like Mitch McConnell, we can win. We can win. But the millions of dollars being spent, they can spend 5-1 and we'll still win. They just can't spend 10-1, 15-1 and expect to win. So if anything you can do, even if it's $5, go to freedomworksforme.com. Thank you so much, Matt. Talk again.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.